I pulled up to the 3-bedroom house I'd inherited from my grandmother 2 years ago, Marcus from Summit Property Management, sitting in the passenger seat beside me. My heart felt light that morning. Finally, after letting the place sit empty for too long, I was going to turn it into rental income. Marcus had been professional and encouraging on the phone, and I felt good about this decision. But as I turned onto the familiar street, something felt wrong. There were children's toys scattered across the front lawn, bright plastic trucks, a pink bicycle lying on its side, a deflated soccer ball near the porch steps. I didn't own any of those things. The curtains in the windows looked different too. Floral patterns I'd never seen before. Marcus glanced at me, confusion crossing his face. My heart started pounding as I parked the car. I walked up to the door, keys trembling in my hand, and unlocked it. The door swung open, and there, sitting on my grandmother's old couch, casually watching television, was my younger sister, Crystal. Her 2 kids played on the floor nearby. Crystal looked up at me and smiled like this was the most natural thing in the world. I stood frozen in the doorway, unable to process what I was seeing. Marcus shifted uncomfortably beside me, clearly sensing this wasn't supposed to happen. My voice came out strangled when I finally managed to speak. "Crystal, what are you doing here?" She stretched lazily, not bothering to get up from the couch. "Oh, Jeannie. I was wondering when you'd stop by." Her tone was so casual, like I'd just dropped in for a friendly visit. "This is my house," I said, my voice rising. "What are you doing in my house?" "Our house, actually," she corrected, gesturing around the living room. "And these are my kids. Dylan, Paige, say hi to your Aunt Jeannie." The 7-year-old boy glanced up briefly, then went back to his toy cars. The 4-year-old girl ignored us completely, absorbed in coloring. I noticed everything around me had changed. The furniture I'd left here was gone, replaced with Crystal's cheap particle board pieces. The walls had been painted a garish yellow. Mail sat on the kitchen counter, all addressed to this location with Crystal's name. "How long have you been living here?" I demanded. 3 months, she said brightly. "It's been perfect for us." "The kids love having a yard." Marcus cleared his throat. "Ma'am, did you know about this arrangement?" "No," I said firmly. "I absolutely did not." Crystal rolled her eyes. "Don't be dramatic, Jeannie. Mom and Dad gave me permission. I have every right to be here." My head spun. "That's impossible. They have no right to give you permission. This is my house. Grandma Betty left it to me." "Well, things change." Crystal stood up and walked to the kitchen, opening my refrigerator like she owned it. "The house was just sitting here empty anyway. What's the big deal?" "I needed a place for my babies, and you weren't using it." "The big deal," I said, my voice shaking with anger, "is that this is my property. You can't just move in without asking me. I told you Mom and Dad said it was fine." She pulled out a juice box and handed it to Paige. "Take it up with them if you have a problem." Marcus leaned close and whispered, "We should call the police. This is trespassing." I nodded, my hands trembling. I looked directly at Crystal. "Then I'll call the police." Her face changed instantly. The smug confidence drained away, replaced by panic. "Wait, Jeannie, hold on. Let's talk about this. We can work this out." "Work what out?" "You're living in my house without permission." "Please don't call the cops," she said, her voice suddenly pleading. "Think about the kids. Do you want Dylan and Paige to see their mother arrested? That's traumatic for children, Jeannie." I pulled out my phone, starting to dial. Crystal rushed toward me, her panic escalating. "Stop. Just wait." She disappeared into the bedroom and came back with a folder. "Look at these. Look before you do anything." She shoved papers into my hands. I looked down at what appeared to be official documents. Property deed documents. My stomach dropped as I read them. "What is this?" I whispered. "The deed," Crystal said, her confidence returning. "My name was added to the property deed 6 months ago. See? Right there. Signed by Mom and Dad." I stared at the papers, my vision blurring. The document showed Crystal's name added as a co-owner. Dated 6 months ago. Signatures that looked like my parents, Diane and Harold Foster. "This can't be real," I said. "This is my house. Grandma Betty left it to me." Marcus took the papers, examining them carefully. His expression was grim. These look official. County recorder's stamp, notary seal. If this is legitimate, she has a legal claim. But I never agreed to this. My voice cracked. Nobody asked me. Crystal crossed her arms, that smirk returning to her face. Nobody had to ask you. Mom and Dad have rights too. I immediately pulled out my phone and called my mother. She answered on the third ring. Mom, what did you do? I didn't bother with pleasantries. Did you add Crystal to my property deed? There was a pause. Oh, Jeannie, yes, your father and I did that. Crystal needed help. And you weren't using the house. You gave away half my inheritance without asking me? Don't be so dramatic, my mother sighed. It's still in the family. What's the difference? Crystal has those 2 babies to care for, and you have your nice condo. We thought you'd understand. Understand? Mom, this is theft. It's not theft. It's family helping family. Crystal was desperate, Jeannie. What kind of sister are you? Begrudging her a place to live. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I'm the kind of sister who would have helped if she'd asked. But nobody asked. You just took half my house. Well, it's done now, my mother said coolly. You'll have to learn to share. We're not discussing this further. I have to go. She hung up. I stood there, phone still pressed to my ear, unable to move. Crystal was watching me. That triumphant look on her face, telling me everything I needed to know. She'd planned this. All of it. See, Crystal said sweetly. It's not just your house anymore. It's ours. So, maybe you should leave, and we can discuss visitation rights for the property later. Marcus touched my elbow gently. We should go. You need to talk to a lawyer. I looked around the house one more time. My grandmother's house? The place where I'd spent summers as a child, where Grandma Betty had taught me to bake cookies and told me stories on the porch swing? Crystal had taken it from me, with my own parents' help. The betrayal cut so deep I could barely breathe. I walked out without another word, Marcus following behind me. As we got to the car, I heard Crystal's laughter through the open door. 2 weeks later, I sat in attorney Susan Crawford's office, surrounded by documents and growing despair. Susan was in her 50s, sharp and professional, with kind eyes that had probably seen every type of family betrayal imaginable. I'd spent $2,000 just for this initial consultation and research. I'm going to be straight with you, Jeannie, Susan said, leaning back in her chair. The deed transfer is technically legal. My heart sank. How? I never agreed to anything. Here's what I found. Susan pulled out a file. When you inherited the house 2 years ago, do you remember having any financial help with it? I thought back. No, I handled everything myself. The inheritance taxes, the transfer fees, all of it. Are you sure? Because I found a payment record. $15,000 was paid toward the property expenses right after you inherited it, paid by Harold and Diane Foster, your parents. I felt the room tilt. What? No, that's not possible. I paid everything. Susan showed me the bank records. There it was, clear as day. A $15,000 payment from my parents' account, applied to the property 2 years ago. I'd never known about it. Never seen any statement showing it. How did I not know about this? That's a good question, Susan said carefully. But the fact is, this payment gave your parents a legal claim to partial ownership. In property law, if someone contributes significantly to a property acquisition or maintenance, they can claim an ownership interest. Your parents used that claim to transfer their portion to Crystal, but I would have paid them back if I'd known. I didn't ask for their money. I understand, and that may have been their strategy. Give money without telling you, establish a claim, then transfer it. It's manipulative but not illegal. I felt sick. So Crystal can just stay in my house? Not exactly, Susan said, and I saw a glimmer of hope. She's a co-owner, yes. But co-ownership doesn't automatically give her the right to exclusive possession. You're also an owner. She can't live there without your permission as the other co-owner. We can force her out. But it will take time. We'll need to file a partition action, establish that she's living there without your consent as co-owner, and get a court order. How long? Months, most likely. The courts are backed up, and these cases aren't considered urgent. I closed my eyes. Months of Crystal living in my house, destroying it. Okay, let's start the process. That afternoon, I drove to the house to document the damage for our court filing. I had my phone ready to take photos and videos, but when I tried my key in the front door, it didn't work. Crystal had changed the locks. I stood there furious and called a locksmith. When he arrived, I showed him my copy of the property deed, proving I was a legal owner. He looked uncomfortable, but agreed to open the door. It cost me $200. Inside, I found devastation. The walls that had been yellow were now a dark purple in the living room, bright orange in the kitchen. The carpet I'd left in good condition was now stained with what looked like juice, food, and dirt. My grandmother's antique furniture, the pieces I'd carefully stored here, were gone. Completely gone. Crystal must have sold them. I walked through each room, photographing everything. The bathroom had mold growing in the corners. The kitchen cabinets had been painted over with cheap white paint that was already chipping. In what used to be the guest bedroom, I found evidence of more people living here than just Crystal and her 2 kids. Men's clothing, work boots, motorcycle magazines. Crystal's boyfriend Brad, probably. I spent 2 hours documenting everything, my anger building with each discovery. The damage would cost thousands to repair. Crystal had treated my inheritance like a dumping ground. The next morning, a process server knocked on my apartment door. I signed for the papers, confused, then opened them. My blood ran cold. Crystal had filed a restraining order against me. According to her petition, I had broken into the house, threatened her and her children, and had been harassing and stalking her for weeks. She claimed I'd called her repeatedly with threats, shown up at the house multiple times making scenes, and told her I would make her regret ever crossing me. None of it was true, none of it, but she had a witness. Her boyfriend Brad had signed an affidavit swearing he'd heard me make threats. The document painted me as an unhinged, dangerous person, and the judge had granted a temporary restraining order. I was now legally prohibited from going within 500 feet of the property. My own property. I called Susan immediately. "This is a common manipulation tactic," Susan said, her voice tight with controlled anger. "She's trying to keep you away from the house while we fight the ownership issue. By claiming you're dangerous, she gets exclusive access. But it's all lies." "I know, and we'll fight it. But the temporary order stands until we can get a hearing. That could take weeks, maybe months." "Months?" I felt the walls closing in. "Susan, I can't go near my own house for months? I'll file for an emergency hearing to dissolve the order. We'll present evidence that you're the co-owner and have legitimate reasons to access the property." "But Jeannie, this is going to be a longer fight than I initially thought. Crystal is playing dirty." That evening, I tried one more time to reach my parents. My father answered, "Dad, please, you have to help me. Crystal is lying. She's filed false charges against me. She's destroying the house. Please, can you talk to her? Make her stop?" "Jeannie, I don't know what to believe anymore," my father said, his voice cold. "Crystal told us you've been harassing her, threatening those babies. That's not the daughter I raised." "Dad, I never threatened anyone. She's lying. Crystal has nowhere else to go. Those children need stability." "Why are you being so selfish about this?" "Selfish? She stole my house. She didn't steal anything. We gave her a share of it because you were being greedy, keeping it all to yourself. Grandma left it to me, and we helped you keep it with our money. Money you never bothered to thank us for, by the way." I was speechless. They'd given me money I never asked for, never even knew about, and now they were using it as justification for giving away my inheritance. "Please, Dad, just look at what's really happening here. What's happening is you're tearing this family apart over a house. Your mother is in tears every day because of this. Crystal is terrified you're going to hurt her kids. Sort out your priorities, Jeannie." He hung up. I sat on my couch, surrounded by legal papers and bills, and realized my entire family had turned against me. In their eyes, I was the villain. Crystal had successfully painted herself as the victim, and everyone believed her. 1 month had crawled by since the restraining order, I hadn't been able to go near the house, could only watch helplessly as my legal case inched forward at a glacial pace. Then, the bills started arriving. The first one was the electric bill, $917. 3 months unpaid, all in my name as the property owner. The water bill came next, $412, also unpaid. Gas, $603. Crystal hadn't paid a single utility bill. But since the house was in my name, the companies didn't care about our property dispute. They wanted their money. I called the electric company first. "I'm not living at that property," I explained to the customer service representative. "Someone else is living there." "Ma'am, the account is in your name. We need payment, or we'll send this to collections." "But I didn't use that electricity." "That's not our concern. This is a billing matter. If you have a dispute with another resident, that's between you two. We need payment within 10 days, or this will affect your credit score." I had the same conversation with the water and gas companies. Nobody cared about my situation. Pay, or ruin your credit. I pulled out my credit card, the one I'd been trying to keep clear for emergencies, and paid nearly $2,000 in utility bills for electricity, water, and gas I hadn't used. Crystal had been living comfortably in my house, running up bills, and leaving me to pay them. My savings account was hemorrhaging. Attorney fees, court costs, bills, the restraining order hearing. I'd already spent over $5,000, and the case was nowhere near resolved. Then Marcus called from Summit Property Management. "Jeannie, I need to talk to you about something difficult," he said, his tone apologetic. My stomach dropped. "What is it?" "We're going to have to withdraw as your property manager." "I'm sorry, but with the ownership dispute, the restraining order, and all the complications, we just can't move forward." End of Inicles, end of 10. Our company policy doesn't allow us to manage properties with active legal disputes. "Marcus, please, I need you. Once this is resolved, I need to get renters in there." "I understand, and I'm truly sorry. But my hands are tied. The liability is too high. Once your legal situation is cleared up, give us a call and we can discuss it again." He was kind about it, but the message was clear. I was on my own. This property was supposed to generate rental income. That was the whole plan. Monthly income to help build my future. Maybe save for a better place, or travel, or just have financial security. Now it was doing the opposite. It was draining every dollar I had. 2 days later, my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. "Is this Jeannie Foster?" a woman's voice asked. "Yes, this is Patricia Dunn from the City Code Enforcement Office. We need to discuss violations at your property on Maple Street." My blood went cold. Violations? We received a complaint about illegal construction and safety hazards. An inspector visited the property yesterday and confirmed multiple code violations. "You're the owner of record, correct?" "Yes, but I'm not living there. There's a legal situation." "Ma'am, as the property owner, you're responsible for code compliance regardless of who's living there. We found unpermitted construction, specifically a load-bearing wall that's been removed without permits or proper engineering assessment. There's also electrical work that wasn't done to code, creating a fire hazard. You have 30 days to correct these violations or face fines, starting at $15,000. $15,000. I couldn't breathe. "I can't access the property," I said weakly. "There's a restraining order." "I'm sorry, but that's not our concern. These are safety violations. They need to be corrected immediately." I called Susan as soon as I hung up. She listened to the code enforcement situation, and I could hear her typing rapidly. "I'll file an emergency motion to allow you access for repairs," she said. "This is a legitimate safety issue. The judge should grant access. How long will that take?" "I'll try to get a hearing within the week." The hearing was 5 days later. Susan presented our argument. Safety violations that needed immediate correction. Jeannie, as the property owner, had the right and responsibility to make repairs. Temporary access should be granted despite the restraining order. The judge looked bored. Motion denied. These repairs aren't urgent enough to override the restraining order, which was granted to protect Miss Foster's children. The property owner can hire contractors to do the work. Next case. Your Honor, Susan tried. My client can't hire contractors without being able to access the property to meet with them, assess the work, and supervise. She can communicate through her co-owner. Denied. Next case. We left the courthouse in stunned silence. The Code Enforcement Office didn't care that I couldn't access the property. The judge wouldn't let me access the property. And in 25 days, I'd be fined $15,000 for violations Crystal and Brad had created. That evening, I got another call. This time from Housing Authority. Ms. Foster, we've received a complaint that you attempted to illegally evict a tenant from your property without proper notice or legal procedure. What? No. Crystal isn't a tenant. She's a co-owner, and I never tried to evict her. According to the complaint, you changed locks, attempted to force entry, and threatened to have her removed by police. These are serious violations of tenant rights. She's not a tenant, and she's the one who changed the locks. We'll need to open an investigation. Someone will be contacting you for a formal interview. If we find you violated housing laws, you could face fines and potentially criminal charges. I hung up and immediately searched online for Crystal's social media. What I found made my blood boil. She'd posted on Facebook, "Can't believe my own sister is trying to kick me and my babies out onto the street. Some people only care about money, praying for her cold heart." The post had 217 likes and dozens of comments calling me heartless, greedy, and cruel. People I'd gone to high school with, people who'd known me for years, were condemning me based on Crystal's lies. I was drowning. Financially, legally, and socially, Crystal was destroying me. And I couldn't see any way out. 6 weeks into this nightmare, I received a letter from my bank. The envelope felt heavy, official, ominous. I opened it with shaking hands. Notice of home equity line of credit. $25,000 disbursed to account holders Jeannie Foster and Crystal Foster. I read it 3 times before my brain processed what I was seeing. Someone had taken out a home equity loan on the property. In both our names. But I'd never signed anything. I grabbed my phone and called Susan, but it was Saturday evening. She wouldn't be in until Monday. I couldn't wait that long. I drove straight to my bank, walked up to the counter, and demanded to see a manager. The manager, a woman named Patricia, pulled up the account information. Yes, this loan was processed 3 weeks ago. $25,000. I didn't sign for this. Patricia looked confused. "We have your signature on file. Let me pull the documents." She printed out the loan application. There was my name, my social security number, and a signature that was close to mine but not quite right. The capital J was wrong. I always loop my J in a specific way. This one was slightly different. "This isn't my signature," I said. "Someone forged this." Patricia examined it more carefully. "You're saying this is fraudulent?" "Yes. My sister must have signed it and forged my name. We'll need to file a fraud report. But Miss Foster, the money has already been disbursed. Your sister picked up the check 3 weeks ago. Can you stop payment?" "Not after 3 weeks. The funds are gone." Susan called me first thing Monday morning after I left her 3 voicemail messages. We met at her office, and she immediately started filing police reports and fraud claims. "This is identity theft," Susan said. "Clear cut. We'll report it to the police and the bank's fraud department." But when the police arrived to take my report, the officer seemed skeptical. "You're co-owners of the property, correct?" "Yes, but I didn't sign this loan." "Your sister says you did. Says you both agreed to take out the loan for property improvements." "She's lying!" "Ma'am, this is a civil dispute between co-owners. We can't get involved in that." "It's not a civil dispute. It's forgery. It's fraud." The officer looked uncomfortable. "I'll file the report, but honestly, the DA probably won't prosecute. Co-owner situations like this are treated as civil matters. You'll have to resolve it in court." After he left, I pulled up Crystal's social media again. What I saw made me want to throw my phone. Pictures of a brand new car, a silver SUV with a big red bow on it. Caption: "Treating myself and the kids to a safe, reliable ride. We deserve it." More pictures, new furniture, expensive-looking designer purses, Photos from a beach vacation with Brad and the kids at some fancy resort. She'd spent my money. The $25,000 she'd stolen by forging my signature was being used to buy luxuries, while I went into debt paying her utility bills and legal fees. I screenshot everything and sent it to Susan. Then I drove to my parents' house. My mother answered the door. "Jeannie, what are you doing here?" "I need to show you something, Mom. Please, just look." I showed her the loan documents, pointed out the forged signature. Showed her the bank's confirmation that I'd never signed anything. Showed her Crystal's social media posts flaunting the money she'd stolen. "This is fraud, Mom. Crystal forged my signature and stole $25,000. I'm on the hook for half the loan payments, or the house will go into foreclosure." My mother looked at the documents, then at the social media posts. For a moment, I thought I saw doubt in her eyes. But then she shook her head. "Crystal would never do that. There must be some mistake." "Mom, look at the signature. That's not my handwriting." "I'm not a handwriting expert, Jeannie. Maybe you signed it and forgot." "I didn't forget taking out a $25,000 loan. You're just trying to make Crystal look bad because you're angry about sharing the house. This is low, even for you." "Even for me?" "Mom, I'm the victim here." "No, Crystal is the victim. She's a single mother trying to give her babies a stable home, and you're trying to destroy her over money. I won't be part of this witch hunt." She closed the door in my face. I stood on my childhood porch, looking at the door I'd walked through thousands of times, and felt like I didn't know these people anymore. 3 days later, there was pounding on my apartment door at 9 at night. Aggressive, angry pounding. I looked through the peephole and saw Brad, Crystal's boyfriend. He was a large man, muscular, with a shaved head and tattoos covering his arms. He looked furious. I didn't open the door. "What do you want?" "Open the door, Jeannie. We need to talk." "I'm not opening the door. Say what you need to say from there." "You need to back off. Crystal is stressed out because of you. Those kids are suffering because you won't stop harassing their mother." "I'm not harassing anyone. Your girlfriend stole from me." "Open this door." His voice rose to a shout. "No. Leave or I'm calling the police." "You think you're so smart, threatening to call the cops all the time." "Let me tell you something. You keep pushing Crystal. There will be consequences. You understand me? Consequences." His tone was clearly threatening. I pulled out my phone and started recording. "Are you threatening me?" Through the peephole, I saw him notice the phone. His face darkened. "Give me that phone." "Go away, Brad." He slammed his fist against the door. The whole frame shook. Then I heard the door handle rattle. He was trying to force it open. I called 911. "Someone's trying to break into my apartment." Brad must have heard me on the phone because the rattling stopped. I heard him say, "This isn't over," and then footsteps walking away. The police arrived 15 minutes later. I showed them the video I'd recorded, but Brad had been careful. His actual words could be interpreted as vague. Consequences could mean anything. The officers took a report and said they'd go talk to him. The next morning, I got a call from the police department. "Miss Foster, we attempted to speak with Brad Johnson. He's filed a counter-report claiming you attacked him when he came to your apartment to discuss property matters. He says you lunged at him through the doorway and scratched his face. He has photos of scratches." "That's insane. I never opened the door. He was trying to break in." "It's your word against his, ma'am. Both reports will be on file." I wanted to scream. Instead, I called Susan and told her what happened. She sighed heavily. "This is witness intimidation, but it's going to be hard to prove. Brad's smart enough to stay just on the edge of what's legal. And now with dueling reports, you both look equally culpable." That evening, my phone exploded with messages. My father, my brother Connor, cousins I hadn't heard from in years. All angry, all taking Crystal's side. I checked Facebook. Crystal had posted again. My sister attacked Brad when he tried to peacefully discuss the property situation. She scratched his face and threatened him. Now she's making up lies saying he threatened her. I'm scared for my family. Please pray for us. The post had over 400 reactions. People were commenting things like, Get a restraining order against her, and your sister sounds crazy, and protect those babies. My phone rang. It was my father. You attacked Brad? Have you lost your mind? Dad, that's not what happened. He came to my apartment and threatened me. He tried to force my door open. That's not what he says. That's not what Crystal says. And they have proof. Photos of his injuries. He could have made those himself. Why would he do that? Jeannie, I don't know what's happened to you, but you're not welcome at family gatherings anymore. Not until you get help and apologize to your sister. Get help? Dad, I'm the one being victimized here. No, Crystal is being victimized. By you. Don't call us again until you're ready to make this right. He hung up. Within an hour, I'd been removed from the family group chat. My brother sent a text. Really disappointed in you, sis? Threatening Crystal's boyfriend? That's crossing a line. I tried to respond, to explain, but he'd blocked my number. I sat alone in my apartment, watching my entire family turn against me on social media, and realized Crystal had won. She'd stolen my house, stolen my money, and stolen my family. And everyone believed her lies. 2.5 months into this living nightmare, my phone rang at 7 a.m. It was Susan. Jeannie, we have a major problem. I was already awake, had been for hours. Sleep had become nearly impossible. What now? The property is in pre-foreclosure. The bank is demanding full payment on that home equity loan. Crystal hasn't made a single payment. They're giving you 60 days before they start foreclosure proceedings. $25,000. I didn't have it. I'd maxed out 2 credit cards paying attorney fees, utilities, and my half of the loan payments I'd tried to make. My savings account was down to $800. I don't have $25,000, Susan. I know. Your options are limited. You could declare bankruptcy, which would hurt your credit for years. Or we could try to force a sale of the property. But that will take months to process. And you might not get much after paying off the loan and liens. Or somehow you get full ownership and sell it yourself. But our case to remove Crystal from the deed won't be resolved for at least 6 more months, probably longer. I did the math in my head. 6 months of legal fees at the rate I'd been paying would completely bankrupt me. My own condo, the one I'd worked so hard to buy, might end up in foreclosure too because I couldn't afford both mortgage and legal fees. What if I sold my condo? I heard myself say. Use that money to pay off the loan and save the house? There was a long pause. Jeannie, I strongly advise against that. You'd be sacrificing your own home to save a property you might not ever fully control. Where would you live? She was right. It was insane. But I couldn't think straight anymore. And and whoa. My grandmother's house, the one she'd loved so much, the one she'd specifically left to me because she trusted me to care for it, was going to be foreclosed on and sold at auction. Everything lost. My best friend Angela called that afternoon. She'd been my rock through all of this, the only person who hadn't turned against me. I heard about the foreclosure, she said gently. I want to help. I can loan you some money. No. The word came out sharper than I intended. I'm not dragging you into this disaster. You're not dragging me. I'm offering $10,000. I have it saved, and I want to help you. I started crying. Angela, I can't take your money. This is my mess. It's not your mess. Your sister created this situation. Let me help. If I take your money and still lose, then I've lost your money too. I can't do that to you. We argued for 20 minutes, but I refused. Angela was the one good thing left in my life. I wouldn't let Crystal's destruction reach her too. That night, I stood in front of my bathroom mirror and barely recognized the person staring back. I'd lost 15 pounds. My skin looked gray. Dark circles under my eyes made me look decades older. My hair, which I used to keep styled, hung limp and lifeless. I couldn't remember the last time I'd felt like eating a full meal. My clothes hung loose. At work, people had started commenting, asking if I was okay. I'd used all my sick days dealing with court appearances and legal meetings. My performance reviews, once excellent, now said I was distracted and not meeting expectations. My phone rang. A number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Is this Jeannie Foster? Yes? This is Margaret Chen from Child Protective Services. I need to speak with you about a report we received. My heart stopped. What report? We received allegations that you've made threats against 2 minor children, Dylan and Paige Foster. The children's mother, Crystal Foster, filed a report stating that you came to the residence in violation of a restraining order, yelled at the children, and told them you would make them sorry. She also claims you said you would hurt them if they didn't convince their mother to move out. That's completely false. I never said anything to those kids. I've never violated the restraining order. Miss Foster, we take these allegations very seriously. I need to schedule an interview with you. The interview happened 3 days later. I brought documentation, my work time card showing I was at my job on the dates Crystal claimed I'd come to the house. Statements from coworkers who could verify I'd been there. Phone records showing I hadn't called or texted Crystal on those days. The CPS investigator, a tired-looking woman named Margaret, reviewed everything. Your alibi seems solid for these specific dates. Because I wasn't there. I never threatened those children. I would never threaten children. I believe you, but I still have to open a file. The allegation has been made. So it goes into our system. If there are any future reports involving you and minors, this will be on record. This will stay on my record even though it's false? I'm closing the case as unfounded. But yes, the report itself remains in the system. I'm sorry. I left the CPS office feeling violated in a new way. Crystal had put my name in a government database as someone who might hurt children. If I ever wanted kids of my own someday, would this come up? Would people question me? Judge me? That evening, I discovered Crystal's newest move. She'd started a TikTok account. Her videos showed her crying, holding her 2 kids, talking about her cruel sister who was trying to make them homeless. The comments were filled with sympathy, people offering money, support, prayers. Then she'd set up a Facebook fundraiser. Help me fight my sister in court and keep my babies housed. The goal was $10,000. She'd already raised $4,000. People were giving Crystal money to fight me. Money she'd probably spend on more vacations and designer bags while I drowned in debt from her fraud. The local news picked up the story. A reporter had seen Crystal's viral TikTok and decided it was newsworthy. The article ran with the headline, "Woman Fights to Evict Sister with 2 Young Children." They'd interviewed Crystal, who played the victim perfectly, crying about how she'd been given permission to live in the house, how she was just trying to provide for her babies, how her heartless sister wanted to throw them onto the street. The article mentioned me by name, Jeannie Foster, 32 years old, local accountant, no children of her own, fighting to evict her sister and 2 young kids from a second home she doesn't even use. My workplace saw the article. HR called me in the next morning. "Jeannie, we need to discuss this situation," my supervisor Patricia said, her tone icy. "It's not what it looks like. The article is one-sided. Crystal is lying. We're getting calls from clients who saw the article. They're uncomfortable working with you. We've built our firm on family values. And this negative publicity is concerning. Are you firing me? No. But consider this a warning. Your personal situation is affecting the company's reputation. We need you to resolve this quickly and quietly." I left the meeting shaking. Now my job was in jeopardy too. Crystal had managed to destroy not just my property and finances, but my reputation, my family relationships, and now my career. That night, I sat on my couch staring at my laptop. I pulled up my bank account. $812. Credit cards maxed out. Legal bills still coming. Foreclosure looming. Family gone. Reputation ruined. I'd hit rock bottom, and I couldn't see any way back up. 3 months into my personal hell, I sat in my apartment at 2 a.m, unable to sleep, staring at nothing. Angela had sent me a text earlier. "Please don't give up. Your grandmother wouldn't want you to give up." Grandma Betty, she'd been the strongest woman I knew, raised 3 kids on her own after my grandfather died young, worked 2 jobs, never complained, never quit. She'd fought for everything she had, including that house. And she'd left it to me because she believed I was strong like her. What would she think of me now? Ready to give up? Ready to let Crystal win? I opened my laptop and started researching. If the police wouldn't help me, if the courts were moving too slowly, I needed to help myself. I started with Crystal's background. I'd never thought to look into her history before. She was my sister. I'd trusted her. That was my mistake. I found court records online. 3 years ago, Crystal had sued a former landlord named Walter Chen in civil court. She'd claimed discrimination, said he'd tried to evict her because she was a single mother. The case had been settled out of court. The landlord paid her $5,000. I found his contact information and called him. Walter was cautious at first, but when I explained my situation, he opened up. "Your sister is dangerous," he said. "She moved into my rental property, paid the first month's rent, then never paid again. When I tried to evict her legally, she filed a discrimination lawsuit. My lawyer said fighting it would cost more than settling, so I paid her to go away. She used the system against me. She'd done this before. This was a pattern. Crystal found ways to manipulate housing situations for money. I started driving by the house late at night, parking on the street where I could see the property without technically violating the restraining order's 500-foot rule. I stayed in my car, watching. The first night, nothing unusual. The second night, I noticed a lot of cars pulling up. Different people dropping off kids in the morning around 7. I counted them. 12 different children between the ages of 2 and 6. All dropped off at my house. I watched for a week, taking photos with my phone's zoom from the public street. The pattern was consistent. Crystal was running a daycare. 12 kids. 5 days a week. I looked up the regulations for daycares in our state. Any facility caring for more than 6 children needed to be licensed, inspected, and meet specific safety requirements. I called the state licensing board anonymously. "I'd like to verify if a daycare at this address is licensed." I gave them the Maple Street address. One moment. Keyboard clicking. "No, ma'am. There's no licensed daycare at that address." Crystal was running an illegal daycare operation. That was why she'd knocked down that wall. She needed a bigger space for all those kids. The code violations suddenly made sense. I kept watching. On the 4th night, I saw something else. Cars pulling up. Brad coming out to the driveway. Quick exchanges. People handing him cash, him handing them small packages. It happened 3 times in 1 hour. Drug dealing. Brad was dealing drugs from my property. I recorded everything. Videos with timestamps. License plates, faces when possible. I was building a case. I called Susan the next morning. "I have evidence, a lot of it. Can we meet?" In her office, I showed her everything. The photos of the illegal daycare, the videos of Brad's drug transactions. Susan watched, her eyes widening. "This changes things," she said. "This is criminal activity. The police will have to act on this." Will they, though? They've ignored everything else. Not this. Illegal daycare is a serious violation. Endangering children and drug dealing? That's felony activity. We need a private investigator to gather more evidence, document this professionally. Can you afford that? I couldn't. But Angela had offered to help. I called her. "I need to borrow some money. For an investigator. I think I've found a way to fight back." "How much?" $3,000. "I'll transfer it tonight." I hired a private investigator named Thomas Reed. He was a former police detective, professional, thorough. I showed him what I'd found, and he took over the surveillance. 2 weeks later, Thomas had compiled a comprehensive report. Professional photos and videos of the illegal daycare operation with 12 unlicensed children, Brad's drug dealing activities, including license plates of buyers, property damage documentation, Brad's criminal record, including a previous conviction for drug possession, Crystal's history of fraud, including the landlord case, but Thomas found something else. Something huge. I took a close look at those original deed transfer documents, Thomas said in our meeting. The ones showing your parents transferred ownership to Crystal. I had a forensic document examiner analyze the signatures. He pulled out a report. Your parents' signatures on those documents are forgeries. The expert is 98% certain, based on comparison with their known signatures on other legal documents. Crystal forged your parents' signatures to add herself to the deed. I couldn't breathe. She forged their signatures? Yes, which means the deed transfer is fraudulent. Crystal never had legal right to ownership. She fabricated the entire thing. Everything clicked into place. That's why my parents had acted so casually about it. They hadn't known the specifics because they'd never actually signed anything. Crystal had told them she'd been added to the deed, and they'd believed her, assumed they must have signed something and forgotten. She'd manipulated everyone. We need to take this to the police again, Susan said, examining the forensic report. With this evidence, they'll have to act. But I wanted more. I wanted every piece of ammunition possible. Thomas kept investigating. He found Crystal's bank records through legal subpoena for the fraud case. She'd deposited the $25,000 from the forged loan, then immediately wired $15,000 of it to an offshore account, money laundering. He found social media posts from Brad bragging about his business with photos of cash and drugs. Stupid, but helpful for our case. He interviewed neighbors who confirmed the illegal daycare, said they'd been concerned but didn't know who to report it to. We had everything. A mountain of evidence. Criminal activity, fraud, forgery, illegal business operation, drug dealing. Susan filed emergency motions with the court, attaching all the evidence. She also sent everything to the police with a formal demand that they investigate. This time, they couldn't ignore it. The judge scheduled an emergency hearing within 3 days. Susan, Thomas, and I sat on one side of the courtroom. Crystal and her court-appointed attorney sat on the other. Crystal looked confident, smug even. She had no idea what was coming. Susan presented the evidence methodically. The forensic analysis proving Crystal had forged our parents' signatures on the deed transfer. The bank records showing the forged loan. The surveillance footage of the illegal daycare. Videos of Brad dealing drugs from the property. Brad's criminal record. Crystal's history of housing fraud. I watched Crystal's face change as each piece of evidence was presented. Confidence melted into confusion, then panic, then pale fear. The judge looked grim. Miss Foster? This court finds that the original deed transfer was obtained through fraud. The transfer is hereby voided. Jeannie Foster is the sole legal owner of the property. The restraining order is dissolved immediately as it was obtained through false statements. Crystal started to object, but the judge cut her off. Furthermore, based on the evidence of criminal activity at the property, I'm ordering you to vacate the premises within 48 hours. Failure to do so will result in arrest for criminal trespass. This court will be forwarding this evidence to law enforcement for criminal investigation. As we left the courthouse, police were already moving. They'd obtained a warrant based on our evidence. I watched from down the street as they raided the house. Brad was arrested on site for drug possession with intent to distribute. They found his stash in the garage. Crystal was arrested for forgery, fraud, and identity theft. The illegal daycare was shut down immediately. The parents who'd been bringing their kids there were furious when they learned their children had been in an unlicensed facility with drug activity happening on the premises. Several of them filed complaints against Crystal. Dylan and Paige were temporarily placed with my parents. This forced my mother and father to finally face the truth. I went to their house that evening with Susan and all the evidence. We sat at their kitchen table, the same table where we'd had so many family dinners. And I walked them through everything. The forged signatures, the loan fraud, the illegal activities. My mother cried. Deep, shaking sobs. She forged our signatures? She lied to us? Yes, Mom. She manipulated all of us. My father looked 20 years older. We believed her. We thought she just needed help, that you were being selfish. Oh God, Jeannie, what have we done? You believed your daughter. Crystal lied very convincingly. We should have believed you, my mother said, reaching for my hand. You're our daughter too. We chose her lies over your truth. Can you ever forgive us? It wasn't that simple. They'd hurt me deeply. They'd abandoned me when I needed them most. But they were my parents, and they'd been manipulated too. It's going to take time, I said honestly. I can't just pretend the last 3 months didn't happen. You cut me out of the family. You called me selfish and greedy and heartless. We were wrong, my father said. Completely wrong. We'll do anything to make this right. I need you to understand something. Crystal almost destroyed my life, my finances, my reputation, my career, my mental health, everything. And you helped her do it by believing her instead of investigating. They nodded, both crying now. We'll make it right, my mother whispered. Whatever it takes. The legal proceedings moved forward. The bank reversed the fraudulent loan once they saw the forgery evidence and their own lack of due diligence. The $25,000 was written off, and I wasn't held responsible. The code enforcement violations were dismissed once I proved I hadn't authorized the construction and hadn't been able to access the property. CPS closed their investigation completely and removed my name from their system after seeing evidence that Crystal had fabricated the allegations. I contacted the local news reporter who'd written the initial article. She agreed to meet with me and reviewed all the evidence. She wrote a follow-up story. Woman vindicates herself after false accusations by sister. The article laid out the truth, Crystal's forgery, the fraud, the manipulation. My name was cleared publicly. Social media opinion shifted fast. People who'd called me heartless and cruel started apologizing. Crystal's fundraiser was shut down by Facebook, and donors demanded refunds. Her TikTok account was suspended for spreading false information. My workplace called me in again. This time, Patricia apologized. We should have let you explain before judging. Your position is secure. Crystal faced multiple felony charges. In a plea deal to avoid maximum prison time, she pleaded guilty to forgery, fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy to commit fraud. She was sentenced to 3 years in prison. Brad got 5 years for drug trafficking. The house was a disaster. Angela took time off work to help me repair it. We spent 2 weeks cleaning, painting, fixing the damage Crystal had caused. The illegal wall removal was properly repaired by licensed contractors. The electrical hazards were fixed. I had the carpet replaced, the walls repainted in neutral colors, and I brought back some of my grandmother's furniture from storage. The house slowly started to look like itself again. I found a new property management company, this one thoroughly vetted. They placed excellent tenants within a month. The rental income started flowing, finally giving me the financial stability I'd planned for. My savings slowly rebuilt. My credit cards got paid off. The dark circles under my eyes faded. I started sleeping again. Eating again. I'd survived. My relationship with my parents was complicated. They were trying. They helped with repairs. They apologized constantly. But trust takes time to rebuild. I saw them occasionally, maintained boundaries, and slowly, very slowly, we started to heal. My brother Connor apologized too, admitted he'd judged too quickly. Extended family members who turned on me came back with sheepish apologies. Some I forgave. Others I kept at a distance. I learned who my real family was. Angela, who'd never doubted me. Susan, who'd fought for me. Thomas, who'd found the truth. I went to visit Crystal in prison once. She looked smaller somehow, diminished. She apologized, claimed she'd been desperate, said she'd made terrible choices. You didn't just make bad choices, I told her. You systematically destroyed my life for money. You forged documents. You lied to our parents. You lied to everyone. You filed false reports. You almost cost me everything. I know, she whispered. I'm sorry. I don't know if I can forgive you, maybe someday, but not now. I left and haven't been back. Dylan and Paige are living with my parents. They're innocent in all this. I see them sometimes. Bring them gifts. Try to be a good aunt. It's not their fault their mother is who she is. 6 months after the legal victory, I stood in front of my grandmother's house. It was fully repaired, freshly painted, with new tenants who loved it. The garden had been restored. The porch swing where Grandma Betty used to tell me stories was hanging again, gently moving in the breeze. I thought about everything I'd been through: the betrayal, the financial devastation, the isolation, the absolute rock-bottom moment when I'd considered giving up. But I'd fought back. I'd investigated when the police wouldn't. I'd gathered evidence. I'd proven the truth. I'd won. Grandma Betty had left me this house because she believed I was strong enough to protect it. She'd been right. I was strong enough, stronger than I'd known. I learned that family doesn't always mean unconditional support. Sometimes family hurts you the worst. But I also learned that real family, the people who truly love you, stand by you when everything falls apart. Angela had been more of a sister to me than Crystal ever was. I learned that the system isn't always fair, that sometimes you have to fight for justice yourself. That truth matters, but you have to be willing to prove it with evidence and persistence. I learned that I could survive things I thought would break me. That rock bottom is terrifying, but you can climb back up. That losing everything shows you what really matters. Most importantly, I learned to trust myself. To fight for what's right, even when everyone tells you you're wrong. To gather facts instead of accepting lies. To never give up, even when it seems hopeless. The house represents more than just property to me now. It represents survival, victory, the proof that justice can prevail if you're willing to fight for it. I locked the front door, patted the porch railing like Grandma Betty used to do, and walked to my car. The house was safe. My grandmother's legacy was protected. And I was stronger than I'd ever been. Sometimes you have to go through fire to discover what you're made of. I'd gone through fire, and I'd emerged with steel in my spine and truth as my weapon. Crystal had tried to take everything from me. Instead, she'd taught me exactly how strong I could be. That was a lesson worth more than any house. Have you ever had a family member betray your trust? How did you handle it? And were you able to rebuild that relationship? Or did you have to set permanent boundaries? I'd love to hear your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please give it a like, subscribe to stay connected for more real-life stories, and share this with anyone who might be going through their own battle with family betrayal. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I hope it reminds you that even in your darkest moments, you have the strength to fight back and reclaim your life. Stay strong, and remember that truth and justice are worth fighting for.